Thanks for tuning in to As the Tire Turns podcast. Before we dive into this week's episode, I'd like to thank our sponsor, AME International. Tire professionals insist on AME. I'd also like to recognize the AACF. For over 65 years, the Automotive Aftermarket Charitable Foundation has stood by those in the automotive aftermarket industry and their families during life's toughest challenges. Since 1959, with the incredible support of industry partners, AACF has provided vital assistance to individuals and families facing financial hardship due to unforeseen circumstances, such as floods, earthquakes, storms, fires, catastrophic medical conditions, life-changing accidents, devastating fatalities, and more. AACF offers a straightforward application process and a quick turnaround time for those needing support during critical moments. Visit www.aftermarketcharity.org to access the application and learn more about how AACF can assist during times of need. Together, we can make a difference in the lives of our automotive aftermarket family. Support AACF today. And now, As the Tire Turns. All right, we're back with another episode of As the Tire Turns podcast. Today I'm joined by Mason Hess, Director of Mining for Purcell Tire and Rubber. Is it Purcell Tire and Rubber Company?
Purcell Tire and Rubber Company.
All right. I was going to say Purcell Tire, but I think it's Purcell Tire and Rubber. So, Mason, thank you for joining.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for having me.
You know, we've both been through the chairs, right? I'm still hanging on by a thread as past president, but I wanted to kind of document my year because previous presidents had said it goes by quick, and I'm like, what can I do? Not to hold on, but just to have something. So I wanted to launch the podcast to really kind of, document not only my year as president, but also some of the people who've impacted, influenced, and movers and shakers, if you will, and so on. And so you've obviously gone through and have served. And so my first question was going to be, how does it feel to be the second biggest president in team history?
One of my jokes, you get in a room and you're kind of meeting people for the first time, and they'll ask, how did you get where you're at, and that kind of stuff. And I says, well, whether I'm with Purcell Tire or where I'm at with friends, I'll always say, well, they usually within our company, they usually promote by height, right, or size, right?
Exactly.
So I'm fortunate to be promoted in here, but I think a lot of it is that snapshot of, hey, you're the president, hey, or you go through the gauntlet a little bit, right? And then you blink and it's done. When I heard you were doing this, I was like, awesome, right? Like, and what a better person than you to do it, to kind of go talk to all the goats and all the people and kind of get some insight and stuff. So I think it's a great thing to kind of get people, we heard it this week on how do we get and keep people and all that kind of stuff.
Engagement,
and letting people see that we're human, right? Yeah. And I've been teasing, I think I sent you a text about Air Force 5 is coming in,
exactly.
Or you might be 4, and Jim, and as the presidency's turn and stuff, but it's good,
By the time we run through the chairs, we'll be in like an experimental ultralight or something like that,
Yeah.
I was going to say, so you might be the second biggest president, right? But I think you got me beat on the shoes, right? We were talking about the fancy attire, and I said, Mason, are those bowling shoes? And so, but not rentals. Those were actually purchased that way.
In fairness, if anyone's making a police report right now, I didn't steal them, but I wanted to wear them today because there's some rumors out there that some other guys have fancier shoes.
Former board member Scott Whedon, right?
Scott. So I figured I'd set the record straight. He did. In fairness, he was wearing some fancy ones yesterday, but he went home a day early today, so I didn't get a show off. So I figure I'm gonna wear them right now.
I love
and I'm gonna put it on the record that Mason's got the best shoes.
And size 15s, are they?
Yeah.
So you got me bested by one. So.
And Bruce is another one with Yokohama. I don't know if you cross paths with him.
Bruce,
too, but
Basikin or I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but yeah.
I'm gonna give away all our secrets. So we went on a trip. I want to say 3 or 4 years ago, And you know how you have your favorite shoes?
Yeah.
Right? Like you just wear them around the house
Yeah.
or whatever you're doing, you slip them on and you do their stuff. Well, he brought them to the fishing trip, and his wife basically told him, leave them there.
Oh, really?
They're pretty rough, so we were beating him up a little bit. But I'm proud to say that he has gotten new shoes now, and they're not as good as these. But
it's funny you mention that, because my favorite pair, I probably should have never purchased, but I did a trip years and years ago, and I try and maximize. We travel a ton, so I try and maximize my nights at home.
Yeah.
And so that leads to, I really don't take the red eyes anymore, because it kills you on the day that you arrive. But I was notorious for taking the 5:30 a.m. or the 6 a.m. flight out to be able to get one more night home. But I'm also a serial procrastinator, and so I'd come in to pack around midnight. And Kelly'd already be asleep, my wife, right? And then no sooner would I wake her up from packing than 3 hours later, right? Because I figure, wow, it'll make it easy. I'll sleep on the plane, and so on. Then I'm getting woken up 3 hours later. So at some point in time in our marriage, she just started packing my suitcase.
Oh.
And I'm like, this is fantastic, right?
Congratulations.
And she'd leave it open, and I'd just kind of go through, and she said, how many work days, how many casual, right? And so it was fantastic. So I'm going to Europe. I got my personal valet, right? Packing, and you fly overnight. And so I get there, and we land on a Sunday, and I got to hit the ground running Monday. And in Europe, Germany, they really don't have the 24/7 culture, right? It's not uncommon to see shops close at 7 p.m. A lot of shops are closed on Sunday, right? And so anyway, I arrive, and I realize she forgot to pack dress shoes. So we're visiting Stahlgruber Corporate, Rima Tip Top, right? And just outside of Munich and Poing. And I'm traveling with Louis Goyeneche right here, and I don't have dress shoes. And so Louis was a bit of a shoe guy. So he says, well, I got a couple pairs. I said, Louis, that's not going to work. He had I don't know, size 9 or something. Yeah. I wore my sneakers in the taxi, and then I shoved my feet into a pair of Lewis's dress shoes. My gait was maybe 12 inches. I could hardly step. My toes were curled under.
Pull the insoles out.
It was terrible.
No socks.
And the guy that I was meeting with was a guy named Detlef Witt, and he kind of joked and laughed. But he told me, he says, hey, when you leave here, go two train stops, and there's a shopping mall. And so I went and bought a pair of brown and a pair of black dress shoes. And they were absolutely my favorite pair.
Yeah.
I had them for years. I got them resold. I mean, they were amazing.
Maybe the universe lined up so you could actually get that shoe that was just right. Yeah,
exactly. So things I did not think we would talk about today.
We're going to hit all the important topics for the tire industry.
So if you've watched any of the podcasts, you don't have to tell me if you will. My fragile ego can't handle it if you say no. But I love to find out, because I always like to say, despite us loving what we do and have made a path and all that good stuff, I don't know that any of us were sitting through school saying, I'm going to join the tire industry, right? Unless you're second generation, third generation or something. So how did Mason Hess enter the tire industry?
Yeah, I was around it as a kid. My dad was in the business. He worked for Firestone early on, all retail. Manager. And my grandpa was actually in the business before that, just for a little bit. And then he ended up working for Cobra Tire back in the day.
And Fletcher's Cobra Tire.
Yeah, he ran retail for Cobra Tire. And I'm a young high school, college kid looking for money to buy sodas or whatever you do back then, right? And so I'm working weekends in warehouses, unloading trucks and doing that kind of stuff. So I kind of came in through there, but my honestly, as a young kid, because in Phoenix, unloading van trailers out in the heat, you crack the door open full of tires and it's make you melt, there was no way I was like, I'm not getting this. It was just to make a little money on the summers, and I'm going to go do something else. And long story short, I came out of college and had all this credit card debt from buying PlayStations. I didn't know about interest back then, but ended up, I was like, you know what, I'm just going to go work. I had an accounting degree, and I was like, I'll just go work general ledger at Cobra Tire and pay off the stuff. And I was trying to be a firefighter, so I was testing and doing that on the side. And here I am, like you blink and
that's
here
hilarious.
I am.
So one thing I've loved about the podcast series is learning things and hearing you wanting to become a firefighter. I wanted to become a physical therapist.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And going to college and also talk about credit card debt. I got my first credit card at my first semester away at college. You know, you have brochures in the school, no income needed, right? I'm like, sign me up. And I think I got a $500 limit credit card. But I told my kids just recently, first thing I went out was bought, this is in 1991, like a matching tracksuit. Like the parachute.
Did you get a velvet hat too,
or
just the suit?
It wasn't velvet. It was like that nylon, So like almost like parachute
Adidas
material or whatever.
Something.
So occasionally it'll pop up on my Facebook feed. Me, one of the guys from that was on the basketball team. They're like, that suit. I go, that's the one.
It launched your trajectory right there. Nice tracksuit.
So. Well, I was just going to say, with that, talking basketball, right? I know it's the Chiefs. I don't know, what town was it? Was it you have a little basketball in your background as well?
Yeah, I kind of came up through. I had an older brother that. This is kind of one of those moments that I kind of look back. I was goofing around and a little troublemaker and stuff like that. And when my brother was a freshman in high school, I went to an awards banquet. He had a sport. I think it was wrestling or something. And I remember going and seeing that, like, man, this is cool. Look at this. So I was like, oh, and I didn't really do organized sports before high school. Never played football. I played basketball with the neighborhood kids and let my brother beat me up all day type deal. But when I got into high school, I was like, oh, yeah, I'm going to do this. But a lot of it was as I saw a banquet, that my older brother was in. And I was like, ooh, I'm going to do that. And off you go. And then I'm a big kid, so next thing you know, they need a big body over here, and
the coaches recruit you.
Yeah, put him out front so that he can kick all the blunt force.
Yeah.
But it was a good. As you know, it teaches you that hard work equals success. I think there's a formula there in sports that, you fall down, you get up, you fall down, and if you lose, you got to work harder, and eventually, when you keep working, you win. And that formula is it's a cheat code a little bit in life. So
I believe so as well, especially in business. And I'm always surprised. In fact, I just saw my high school coach, who was somewhat of a legend in our area, right? Kind of a Bobby Knight of high school coaches, right?
I was gonna say Bobby Knight was your high school coach.
No, but he had the same passion as Bobby Knight did, and you didn't want to fall out of favor with him, but he. I'm amazed at how much in my business career I go back to, he was clearly one of my mentors and just that team before individual, right? And even right when we had to travel, we had to wear a tie and sweaters on game days and just, he would give us the talk. You're representing, Springstead High School, Hernando County, right? The basketball. I mean, and you'd better be on your best behavior, right? But it was all about coming together as a team, which obviously in business you have to do, right?
I sometimes when, you're hiring and interviewing and stuff like that, and you you come across those guys that have a little history like yours, whether, you come across a military kid maybe, and that military kid, that comes with something, right? There's a background there of toughness maybe, or whether it's a farm kid or a sports kid or type deal. So it gives you a little bit of insight of maybe who those people are. So
agree.
But it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So having been through, right, Tia and again, the presidents, they told me it goes by quick, and also, don't come in with this wild, crazy agenda, right, because it is a machine. And I always say how well the staff, is
For
managed,
sure.
right?
Yeah.
And so I think when the press wants to interview you prior to becoming president, I'm like, man, I just don't want to screw anything up, right? And it's going pretty well. But can you talk about your experience on the board and as president, and you're not the first Purcell tire. I mean, if we go back long, my history doesn't go back, but I know Freda Pratt Boyer served. I served on the board with her, and she was influential as well.
And it's good to have someone a little bit inside your camp, like with Freda. For me, the way I got started was Freda reached out. There was one of those summits. Kevin was putting on a summit to talk about a new training thing and get a little insight maybe from the industry as they developed the new updated training stuff.
Sure.
And I was like, I wasn't even sure what a summit was when she asked me, but I'm like, yeah, Kevin, I don't know. And it kind of, you don't know what you don't know, right?
Sure.
So all I knew of Tia at that time was training, right? I did a lot of training, and I did a lot of the training for the tire guys and stuff like that. And I had no idea about the other stuff. So, heck yeah, Roy Gallagher was going to be some of the guys in the industry, right? And so I go, and we sit in a hotel room somewhere and talking about stuff. And I'm me, right? I just won't be quiet. I'm like, wait, what about this? And what about that? And Freda's in the back. And but right after that, then she approached me and said, hey, you should see if you go for the board. And she explained it to me a little bit and stuff like that. And so that's kind of how I came in. And it was one of the situations where someone went to executive in the middle of their thing. So it was only a 1-year term for me coming in or whatever. So it wasn't like the full term or whatever. But I put my bamboozle on everyone and stuck around for a while and stuff. But
there is some anxiety with that, right?
There is.
I mean, it brings back almost high school days. You're like, am I going to get picked? Am I going to, right? And so, but it's a good core group, and I did not get picked. My first year, I got elected in 2009 and served a 3-year term, but was not reelected, which is a little humbling, right? But it was actually Freda who said, will you consider coming back on? And so I did join again, and have been on since. So it's been a good run, but it's time for the next generation to kind of come in. So,
but you're right. I think with kind of behind the curtain a little bit, if you will, when you get elected or you go in, there's a lot of us come in that way, right? Like we kind of think we know. Like I talked to Freda and says, okay, so what do I do again? There's a little bit of that. You know the big picture of the intent, the compass is make things better, and you get surrounded, and this is probably the secret sauce of the board members and Tia, is that the group, just like this conference here this week, it's all the people together with the who did say it on stage today. They were talking about the DNA, right, of all these different people. Well, this show is that, and it encompasses that whole thing. In one room, there's so much of each other in all of us, from standing on shoulders of giants, right? So, and when you get into that group with Tia's great and all that stuff, but it's those people in that room that to sit with you, and you have this experience over here and this special sauce of I did this and it worked, or I did that and it didn't. And we share our stories, and we're all kind of on our own little islands. And for me, when I came in, I remember leaving like one of the first board meetings, because I was deer in the headlight.
Wide-eyed,
Hope they don't find out I don't know what I'm doing, right? And but I left there, and I remember being so excited about the people in the room, being able to talk. You get in an environment sometimes where everyone's fighting a little bit, right? I got to say what I know, and I got to say what I know. But you get around some real true professionals, sometimes older. We get a little smarter as we get older, and they'll be quiet and they'll listen. And that was so pleasant to sit in a room of a lot of, alpha males and females, if you will, but people will let each other talk and say, here's my opinion, and you know what, I like this, and why don't we do that? That was such a wonderful kind of blessing, right, to see that play out, and then work towards something, right? Hey, let's fix this, or this is important, or that's not.
Exactly.
So,
have kind of a common vision. So you mentioned where we are. So this is not the new plush recording studio for As the Tire Turns podcast. we're like those pop-up shops, right? That just pop up somewhere.
Right,
So
right.
we have a Pelican case that travels with all the gear, and we can do a podcast just about anywhere. So we were at the OTR Conference in beautiful San Juan, Puerto Rico.
Yep.
And, you know, I tell people maybe you can just talk a little bit about that, because people say, hey, should I go? Is that for me? And you know, what is it? And is it a show? I said, no, it's a conference. There's some networking opportunities and some, but like I summarize it in just saying, I don't know all there is to know about the off-the-road market, but I can get you any answer you ask because of the relationships I've made at this event, right?
Yeah.
And it, I don't know, your experience, I don't know how
well
many
said.
of you got.
That's perfectly said. And you know, if I could pitch it, if you will, I think anyone in our industry, this is the most important thing to go to, for the reasons you said, obviously. But there's this. We had dinner with one of our vendors this week, and I've been trying for months to try to get a couple people together, right? Yeah. And have a serious conversation about some stuff that's pending in our business and stuff. And it's not that people are avoiding, it's we get busy and life happens, right?
Yep.
And I was able to accomplish a couple big things this week. And it's like that almost on every trip. I really try to grab those corners and have those coffees in the morning and go over here and dedicate time with some people that really help me be successful. And when this week, you know, you get them all there, and you can, and you also create the relationship, you know, like us a little bit, that when we have a hard thing between us, a tool breaks.
Yeah.
I know Keith. I call Keith up.
Yeah.
Fixed.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And that part makes us so successful in front of our customers, right?
Exactly.
That when they need something, now I become the wolf, right? I don't know if you know Pulp Fiction, right?
Oh yeah.
Where like, oh, I didn't know you're bringing the wolf in. Yeah, I call my connection that you make.
I love it.
And the tool part's on its way, and it's there the next day.
Well, I was gonna say, everybody loves to say, I know a guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So kind of the same thing. So, Madonna, Cher, we'll maybe go Shakira. I tend to be in the music genre, but I think there's only a handful of people where there's a certain achievement when you can be recognized by just one name and everybody knows who you're talking
Prince,
about.
yeah.
Prince, another one,
yeah.
right? And so I'll say it's two names, it's two people, Bob and Juanita. And you almost always hear it said Bob and Juanita.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
I mean,
it's like the alphabet, you have to say it through.
Yeah.
You can't say Q, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. So, but if you mention, especially in this setting, Bob and Juanita, everybody knows exactly who you're talking about. So can you tell about what it's like to be under, you know, work?
Yeah, it's a blessing
with them, for them, you know, side by side, and
for sure. Well, the speaker at the end today, he kind of talked about being in grace and appreciating those shoulders you stand on a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And Bob and Juanita, I competed.
Bob and Juanita Purcell
Yeah.
There may be occasionally some people are like, who are they talking about? But
well, we were talking about the one name. Like Prince had a symbol.
Right.
They're almost at the symbol status, right?
Yeah.
So, but I think with them, I competed against them early on in my career. I was with a Cobra Tire, and then I went into GCR, got bought out and stuff. So I had a perception of who they were. You know, this tough lady and this guy and stuff like that. So I had this, you know, uneducated deal, and then I got to work for them, and they're wonderful people, and they have a theme that they have in turn our company, and we hold to it, the best of the best. Yeah. And we have a really good culture of people amongst us.
Yeah.
And they set that standard a long time ago, type deal. And you know, now they're not as involved as they were 20 years ago and stuff.
Of course, yeah.
But when they come into rooms, everything stops.
Yeah.
And just get in line to get a hug type deal. So yeah, it's been great. They're they're icons for sure, and for right reason, they've earned it, type deal. But it's good, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say it's still revered, right? And you mentioned when they come into a room. I tell the story earlier in my career, going out and meeting with the folks from Les Schwab, right? And at the time, their tooling or their supply division was called Midway Equipment. It's now called Les Schwab Equipment. But I was going out to Prineville, and the guys are giving you the nickel tour and take you up on the bluff, and you can, in this valley, see like how much warehouse space they have. But we went and had lunch at a local golf course or country club there, and I had my back towards kind of the room coming in, and just everything got hushed, right? You didn't hear silverware hitting plates anymore, and I'm like, what's going on? And here comes Les Schwab walking in, cowboy hat, right? But it was just kind of like you knew you were in the presence of greatness, right?
Yeah.
I mean, just somebody who had a vision, and most people, right? Tom Ford as well, right? I mean, they bought a service station, and had some tire aspect to it, and said, hey, maybe we can do something with the tires instead.
You don't know where it ends.
One became two became three, and just, build a fantastic
and I think
organization.
like with Bob and Juanita too, they become a little bit of an icon, right? And even when you're working for them, and the intimidation level when you first get to meet them or maybe come on with the company, what happens is they demand a respect, whether right or wrong or indifferent, when you come in and you got these big tough tire guys, and I've been doing this forever, and they come work for Purcell's or get moved up through the food chain a little bit.
Yeah.
And Juanita and Bob can come in and calm a lion, make it purr, right? They're so good at kind of being direct. I call them truth tellers, right? There's people we come across in life that are truth tellers.
Yeah.
And they're so important because we have to tell the truth and see what happens sometimes.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's hard managing people and stuff because there's feelings, right? They talked about that a little bit.
Sure.
And you be as delicate as you can, but your friends tell you the truth, right?
Yeah.
Your enemies don't, right?
Yeah.
So if you truly have a family and people you care about what you're working with, you got to tell them the truth. You got to tell them, hey, I don't agree and this is why, or hey, let's do this, or hey, that's not right, type deal. So, and there are those type of people that will come directly and
a mentor of mine, and he's a speaker and consultant as well. But Ian McDougall, he says, surround yourself with people who you respect and who will disagree with you.
Yeah.
Right? Because to that point, right, you want that honesty, but if it's come from somebody you really don't respect, you're going to take it as criticism, right? But there's a lot of people you respect, but they may rather take, it's easier just to placate or, and not that. So, it is awkward. So, well, when we were chatting at the beginning of the week and, we'd kind of been talking about getting this together, and you said, 15, 20 minutes. I said, a little more than that, but I said, I'm going to go for the full Barbara Walters, right? You're not leaving until I have you in tears. I don't expect you'll be in tears here, but the only other topic I had to talk about was, as men of size, we'll call ourselves, right? Another gentle giant, Earl Buckingham, who sadly is no longer with us, and when he had passed, you and I had talked, and you were close with him. I mean,
very much.
You guys have regular lunch dates, and both in is it Maricopa County?
Yeah,
Phoenix.
We're down there in Phoenix. Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about Earl and what he meant? And
he go kind of a little bit of who I am today. I made this comment earlier to some of the Fuller Brother peoples, and I said, about the DNA, right? And they said, well, be a little careful how you say that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, good point. Maybe we need to say it a little different. But with him, he was one of my first managers, right? So I worked for him at Cobra Tire. He ran the mining division, and I ran a construction division. It was small OTR.
Yeah.
And I got an opportunity to go over to the mining division, work for him. And his management style is basically what my management style is. And I kind of got that through him. He wasn't a guy that was a dictator by any means. He was a gentle giant like us.
Yeah.
And he was open to say, I don't know everything. teach me type deal. And so I got to spend a lot of time with him, and blessed to do that. And I think through his path too, one of the things he always used to say is your reputation precedes you.
Yeah.
In our industry.
Yeah.
As you know, like it's a kind of a small, tight group of people. They may move around and wear different hats around the industry, but people know Keith, right? People know Mason, and people knew Earl. And when Earl's reputation through his thing, he's another one. Earl comes into a room, everybody smiles.
Yeah.
Earl's here, right? So I remember when he passed, someone said, what did they say? It was such a great statement. They said, you measure a man's worth by the gallons of tears at his funeral, or something like that. I probably messed it up, but he was definitely one of those guys that reached out and touched so many people. The other thing that he was real good about was, it's a little cliche, promote people around you and all that, and give it all away to the other people. That was one of the best things as he did, and I didn't notice this until after he passed. I still have coffee with Leilani, his wife, and catch up and stuff like that. And you start talking about, hey, what happened? And we would call it counseling, right? Yeah. We had a long relationship, so we'd be like, man, need a counseling session. Let's go have some sushi, or let's go off and have a coffee or something like that.
Yeah. And
we'd sit and talk, and I'd vent. And this and that, and this is tough, and this is hard, and you go through all the stuff, and it really helped me. I enjoyed the time with him and stuff like that. After he passed, kind of talking with Leilani about it, I realized he never talked about himself.
Yeah.
And he just took it all in. And I wasn't the only one. He would do that with a lot of people. You find out afterwards a little when he passed that, oh yeah, I talked to him, and he was such a great listener and all that kind of stuff. And he would take it in, and it was all with love and stuff like that. And but that was one of the things that, and you'd prod him. And he was a guy, how you doing? Hey, top of the world. He was always real positive and stuff like that. And but you really got to ask those people, you never know. Life is precious, right?
How are you doing? It's funny you mentioned that. I had a guy texted, and good friend of mine, but we hadn't communicated in a while. He sent me a note just last week. He's like, how you doing? I haven't heard from you. Everything okay? And I think he said, just doing a mental health check or something. And I kind of snapped back at him, right? I said, do you have any Chris? I listed stuff I'm going. I said, maybe drop the mental health check. And he kind of fired back. He says, hey, man, right? He was impacted by somebody. I said, you know what? I agree with you wholeheartedly, right? And whatever, I don't talk about gender roles and stuff, but as men, you do tend to take it in. But I remember you telling me that was a regular lunch date for you, right? Yeah. And that you never really realized until assessing that it was you.
Yeah, it was one way.
Doing all that.
And you'd ask him. I know I prodded and stuff, but he'd never open up into some of that kind of stuff. And I see that now, or I recognize it more. We have as a society, we have a bad habit of, how you doing? Oh, good. And it's kind of a way of saying hello.
Correct.
And we got to slow down a little bit. And there's a lot of people that in our industry that become friends with, and they are important to all of us, right? That you got to kind of slow down and say, hey, it's all right. It's all hard out there.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Well, that's really all I had. I appreciate your time. It's a busy week. It's an amazing conference. And is there anything that you would like to that you thought maybe we would talk about? We got the bowling shoes out already. So is there?
No, the shoes are done. The only other thing is one of the things that I thought was real special this week is through the progression of TIA with you and everyone, we talked about a lot of. Someday we're going to get an OTR technician on the stage.
Yeah.
Right. And this week that finally happened, and there was a lot of behind the curtain stuff talking about how we're going to do it.
Yeah.
When you step back and look at TIA and what our compass is to train in safety and promote, right?
Yeah.
These special tire guys. I think that moment this week was so special that we finally kind of got it all kind of organized and put together. First of many, I hope.
Yeah.
But we had Tony kind of come up on the stage, and
that was amazing.
Standing ovation.
Tony passes it, I think, right? With I think it's Tony Pass with Jim Whitehead Tire, and I spoke with him, and what a really humble guy, and how appreciative. And in addition to that, I spoke with one of the other board members, and was telling me, like, that's the type of guy you want to have customers that will wait, right? Even if they're down, for him to come out and do service, they'll reach out to him directly, right? And not necessarily through dispatch, because they just, and he was flying here on Monday night, and he was out changing tires at noon and went back out. And then they tried to get him again. He said, "Man, I got a flight to catch. I'm going to Puerto Rico, and so on." So, you're right. And I spoke with Kevin a little bit later and talked about the celebration. And there was a nice plaque with the golden hat. And,
that's a great,
and so on.
Great
and he
deal.
says, "Now, is that going in the man cave, or is that going in the garage?" And his wife said, "That's going in the dining room or the living room or whatever. Like, that's going in the house." And like Kevin said, that's it, right? That's what you want. And really just a very appreciative guy, and to celebrate. And like I said to Kevin, it was named after Marvin Bozarth, who we all got to know, and was just an icon in the industry. And I said, did him proud as well. So
he told me a quick story that he wasn't quite sure. This is the first one, right? So we voted, and it wasn't like it's been out there.
I didn't know, right?
You won the Grammys, and everyone knows what it is, right? And he actually, you had to tell me. Someone else told me this story, but he got the award, or not the award here, but he learned about it. He's like, "Hey, you've been awarded the thing, come to Puerto Rico." And he's like, he goes on his phone or the internet, and he's like, "What is this?" And so he's searching for it, and he can't go on the TIA website and find the historical winners. So he was wondering, "Hey, is this a scam? Is this a right deal?" So Tony, if you watch this, just make sure we're glad that you made it out here. It wasn't a scam, but we appreciate you, man.
It was great. And we look forward to your point, celebrating more technicians.
Yeah, for sure. More to come.
So, great. All right.
I appreciate it, Keith, man.
I appreciate you.
Thanks for having me on.
I was going to say, that's all for this episode. Join us next time for another episode of As the Tire Turns. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of As the Tire Turns podcast.